YouTube.
Hi. I don't know if we'll be able to see the chat. We are late because Comcast is completely down in my area, but I'm here with Kathy Biehl for Spirit Talk podcast. We made it happen from our offices, and we're going to do a Spirit Talk podcast like this because the astrology is so important right now for us to get an overview of why all hell is breaking loose on the planet. At least there's something we can find out, we think, the astrological connections. But I just want to see if people are here in the chat. I do see, I don't usually use my phone, so all messages are visible. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, so we're kind of testing. All right. I think we're on. I think we can do at least 50 minutes. Are you good for 50 minutes?
We'll see if my phone is.
Because I think I have an appointment, but I don't know because my schedule's on my phone. So, wow. All right. And Mercury's not even retrograde. Hello. Welcome. So I'm here with the amazing astrologer, Kathy Biehl, and we do Spirit Talk podcast on the new moon weeks and the full moon weeks. And this is a doozy. We've been talking about October for a long time now. Probably since we started, right? Which was earlier in the year. We started this
Yep.
podcast, and Kathy has become my exclusive guest because once we started going with this, I just kind of wanted to keep going with it. So I can do other Spirit Talk podcasts too, but we're going to stick with the astrology a couple times a month. How's it going considering everything for you?
I'm not sleeping. I don't know if other people are experiencing that. I'm sleeping in 1 hour.
Yeah. The night before last, I slept maybe 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, 1 hour chunks, if I'm lucky.
Yeah. And I felt this on Thursday. I did a pretty intense video on Thursday from outdoors from a very high frequency vibration area where I am outside. So I was terrified. I didn't know what was coming, but I felt something big was about to happen. I tended to kind of lean more towards domestically, and then lo and behold, Saturday, Israel got attacked. You mentioned you have some personal connections, or like, so yeah.
Yep. I have relatives there whose mother is Jewish, and they went on the birthright program and found that their lives have blossomed, and they're just now starting families. So
yeah,
a
little rough.
And if anybody can think of a connection they have to something that's actually fairly life-threatening going on somewhere on this planet right now. Now, I want to remind you, last week, it's so hard to remember, before McCarthy was removed as speaker, you and I were trading texts, and we were trying to come up with, like, when is this going to happen? And I kept saying something really big is happening by the weekend.
Yeah, right.
Well, it wasn't about him.
We were both picking up on something.
Excuse me.
And you found it. Do you need to get some water?
I do now. My sinuses have decided they want to drain. So here's the situation, everyone. We have a solar eclipse on the 14th, which is it's an accelerated new moon, and it is in a relationship with Pluto, the lord of all the really scary stuff inside of us, the agent of unavoidable change, which has been plowing through the very end of the sign of Capricorn, institutions, foundations, governments, structures, infrastructures. What happened at the weekend was, before this eclipse hit, it hasn't come yet, we're in the build up to it, Mars, god of war, on the south node, behavior we are moving away from in the sign of Libra, having to do with agreements. Mars exactly squared Pluto, which is a demand for action. So god of war, god of death, have this huge clash. And right above Pluto was the moon in Cancer. And this goes across Israel's chart like this.
Oh my goodness. And Cancer being the nurturing, maternal,
And family.
about family. Because this is so personal what Hamas has done. It's just like, and Putin is the same way. Go for the most vulnerable.
And
Like,
the moon in Cancer was on
yeah.
the midheaven of Israel, which is like the doorway to the world. And it is,
Oh.
it's a spiritual home for many, many people. And the country was hit in Jerusalem. And
the home.
and so now we have this weekend the actual eclipse happening very close to where Mars was last week. The eclipse is at, I'm pretty sure, 21 degrees Libra, and it's in this
I have it right here.
challenging aspect. It's in this challenging aspect to Pluto and to the nodes, which are the way we're headed and what we're going away from. Bottom line is, a solar eclipse, always really volatile, always it installs a new operating system. And in fact, if you look at my podcast, anybody who looks at it for next week, there's a like a computer screen installing the new operating system on it. Like that's the image. So there's a massive.
Let me show you an image. Let me show you this. I've showed it before. This is a solar eclipse. This is an actual photograph of a solar eclipse. This is happening on Saturday. What time?
I should know these things. I do not know.
I'll tell you. 1:55 p.m. So we'll be able to see it. That was a couple of years ago. That was an actual solar eclipse. Probably in 2020. I think in 2020.
This one is annular, which means the moon the moon moves across the sun like a disc and doesn't completely blot it out. So there's a ring of fire. There's a corona around it.
Oh,
so
wow.
Don't, when you're not looking at the sky, you will know that this is happening.
Don't look at the sky. Don't be like Trump.
This is installing a new system and how we deal with each other. And because Pluto is there, this is part of dealing with and moving forward from the absolute deconstruction that everybody has been experiencing since January 2008 in whatever they thought was the solid ground below their feet. Wow. And so this Mars-Pluto square that we've just experienced, we will never go through again in our lifetime with these planets in these signs. This will not happen. This will not happen again. Right? But I will tell you, I will tell you that what is happening in Israel is unfortunately not going away soon at all, and possibly worse coming next year.
So we've been told. So you said this will never happen again. What exact aspect will never happen again?
Mars squaring Pluto in Capricorn. Mars from any sign squaring Pluto in Capricorn. Mars in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto always deals with power and hidden things, and Pluto in Capricorn, where it has been since the end of January 2008, is like that's the oligarchy and its top heavy structure or top down structure. And Pluto is sitting right now at the degree that it is in the US chart. And it's there for the final time. It was there 3 times last year. Now it's sitting there for a while. It goes direct on the 11th. So we're almost there. And then it will, by mid-January, it will move into Aquarius and it will come back into Capricorn next September for about 3.5 months, but only at the very final degree. So we're experiencing something now that is a long time coming and a long time gone. It is a Crosby, Stills and Nash song. I am sorry.
Great song. Great song. Now you said the 11th.
is when Pluto goes direct, but it's not moving. It's just going to sit at 27 Capricorn.
I'm just not seeing that on my astrological calendar. Somebody was asking me how I got my information so fast, and it's like I have an astrology calendar to my left on the wall. But tomorrow it just looks like the moon is in Virgo.
Well, it might be that it goes, well, maybe late today. It could be very, very late today.
I see Mars going into Scorpio. Ooh, Mars going into Scorpio
tomorrow. And then when we get to the lunar eclipse at the end of the month, so we have a double whammy this month. We have one eclipse that's shooting us in a new direction, and one eclipse that's winding a lot of things down. A lot having to do with money, actually, and resources and property and who owns what. When that happens, Jupiter and Mars are going to be really close together, opposite Jupiter in Taurus. So we're going to, and I'll just throw out that Mercury, which deals with how we think and how we get our information. And there's a lot of nonverbal stuff that happens with Mercury and Scorpio. And Mars is already in Scorpio. So this is a double stealth mode or poker face. And it's going to be going across all of Fani Willis's major stuff when the trial in Georgia starts on October 23rd.
All right.
So throw that out there as a heads up for people.
So we have like an intersection, all these different roads. There's this and there's that and this. We probably need to take one subject at a time.
I'm just throwing things out there to finish up some stuff about Israel. Jupiter, which expands everything, is exactly on the north node of Israel, which is its path of destiny. And this is in its seventh house of allies and open enemies. This would account for really huge stuff going on. And Jupiter is square, which is a challenging aspect. Pluto in Israel's chart. So unfortunately, what I see here is horrific numbers of casualties and a lot of money being funneled in to open enemies to make it happen. And it's not going away because Uranus sitting very close to Israel's sun isn't going to be exact until May of next year. And October of next year is another eclipse that really hits a lot of hidden things that have been going on in and involving Israel. So it doesn't mean the war will still be going on a year from now, but there will be things coming out, repercussions. The other piece I'll just throw in here is the eclipse that's happening this weekend also hits Netanyahu's chart in a really big way. His Mars is exactly the same as Trump's. No surprise. There's an indication here of a power grab or consolidation that happened late summer for him and
for Netanyahu.
Yep, and I'm going to say mid-January, something really big shifts for him in terms of support or open enemy. So he could be ousted in mid-January.
I've seen him being taken away. My psychic, in my mind's eye, I've seen him being taken away. It looked like arrested. But that was before all this that I was getting that vision. Let's just back up to I know you have Israel's chart. When was it birthed?
The chart I'm using is May 14, 1948. And I'm using, I'm so sorry.
I want to give you a
4 p.m. is when General Moshe Dayan hit the gavel and declared that Israel existed. Voting, other formal things happened later. Some people use 4, some people use 4:24 in Tel Aviv for anyone who wants to run a chart. I'm working with 4 o'clock. It's in that ballpark. No, that's good enough for me.
So what you're looking at is actually the beginning of the Israeli government, right? Because Israel's been around for thousands of years.
Right. No, the state of Israel. The state of Israel.
State of
Yes.
Israel. So what's the date again?
May 14, 1948.
There's a lot going on then. You know, what I think is really noticeable is that it seems like in so many ways the world that we live in was going through something very similar about 100 years ago. 80 or 100 years ago. With the rise of authoritarianism and,
Robber barons.
World War II. Yeah, all that, right? It's just like we're revisiting that. Is there an astrological component, do you think?
Oh, so you mean late 20s and in the 30s and the 40s?
Yeah.
Yes. Saturn was in Pisces, same place that it's
Uh,
now. But more importantly, Uranus was in Taurus
right.
from most of the 30s. And so that brought both the Depression and Dust Bowl issues and social safety nets and lots of different innovations having to do with finances and how resources were being used.
And I want to say about that too, with a little mini plug for my event tomorrow night. In that time period, when with the rise of fascism, innovation was through the roof,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a huge spiritual movement during that time too. When Saturn was in Pisces, there was a huge that's when the theologians came around and like Ernest Holmes, and I'm always reading from that was in the 30s. Charles Fillmore, all these really great theosophers happened right during that time. And I always remind people, we think we're in tough times now. However, these great spiritual leaders and authors and philosophers kind of got birthed during that time. So even though it's absolute chaos in the world right now, it feels like just absolutely like nobody can figure out what's going on. This is horrible. At the same time, simultaneously, I feel like there's potential at least for a huge spiritual awakening. And with that Saturn and Pisces, I wonder if that's like an element.
Yeah, that would be.
To that. Yeah. So it's like, both things are going on at once. And it seems like a really strong choice point for humanity. Like it was then.
Well, let me throw one more factor into this. Right now, there is an opportunity aspect between Neptune in Pisces, which rules spirituality, compassion, higher love,
Right.
but also drinking too much, gaslighting, lies, propaganda, all that stuff.
Right.
There's an opportunity aspect between it and Pluto. As long as Pluto is at the end of Capricorn, this is there. So you can look at those higher qualities as watering or softening or permeating the structural change we're undergoing. So
I think
with
that's
this,
the only thing that can save us. I really do.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is positive, and people can work with it. It has a way of it's offering us a glimpse at, well, we're all in this together, people. Be nice to each other. Treat people with love and compassion. Why don't you?
Well, plus, I don't know if I'm sure you remember that after 9/11, right after 9/11, everyone was so nice to each other because we were all like, oh my God, we're all in total trauma and mourning. And, we all knew that collectively we're experiencing all this grief. So I do lean into that more love and compassion and kindness is going to be extracted from people, is just going to come out because it's just natural if you're normal, right? It's what's being called upon to bring forth from ourselves. So that Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces, is that happening together?
Well, they're both in the same sign. Hang on a second. Oh, okay. I'm getting an update from one of my relatives. Sorry. Um, uh, they're both in the same sign, but they aren't going to actually meet. Neptune is near the end of Pisces. Saturn's at the beginning of Pisces. In fact, right now it's sitting at the first degree. They're not going to actually meet until March of 2025 in the first degree of Aries. So they're not going to actually complete their conjunction until they both change signs. So for right now, they're traveling in the same sign, but they're not going to actually meet in this sign.
So on the negative, it's more Neptune and Pisces is more lies, delusion, conspiracy. I mean, I feel people. I feel it. I haven't heard it. I feel people talking about the rapture, and I don't know if you sense that. It's like the end times and like all this craziness. But that's a Neptunian influence, right? With the gaslighting and the so many lies and people believing things that you can't even believe they're believing. Um, that's
Unhinged,
yeah,
unhinged from
just like
earthly existence.
were you looking at them like, or just looking at the TV or whatever, and going like, "How can you believe that? That's so outlandish." Like Jewish space lasers, like that kind of thing. So we had talked kind of recently about that Neptunian influence waning, right? Do you remember that?
Yes, and because the reason it's waning, the reason I said it's waning is that it is pulling apart from how it activated stuff in the US chart. It's not actually activating that anymore. It's moved beyond it. And secondly, when it was a really active factor starting in 2016 and which is coming around again, and then in June of 2020, no, when the big lie, when months before the election,
Yeah, it was
I
in
think
the
that's when it was.
it was in the summer of 2020.
Okay, months before the election, Trump was saying, if I lose, it's going to
Yeah,
be because of voter fraud. So
yeah.
that started then. The reason this is all waning is does have to do with Saturn, because Saturn next year is going to start to move through the territory that Neptune was in the Trump Tower meeting in June
Oh,
of 2016, and then it's going to move through where Neptune was when this big lie stuff started. Saturn's a planet of order,
Saturn,
accountability. Put your big
Saturn,
kit pants on.
oh, hang on. Like what Neptune has been doing with all the gaslighting. So Neptune kind of like steps aside and Saturn steps in.
Yeah,
Sheesh, that's
yeah.
crazy, incredible. Like what month? What month?
And here's why it's wonderful.
What month?
Neptune locked into Trump's chart perfectly during
Uh,
all of this big lie stuff.
right,
And it's starting to move into a place where it's now focused more on family money and the Trump organization. So
right.
it's more in that territory. And then so as Saturn comes along and starts walking in the footsteps, essentially, or traveling through the flight path of Neptune, it's going to make the same kinds of aspects to Trump's chart, saying it's time to pay the piper.
I have
It's
this image.
time for accountability.
I have this image of Saturn coming up behind him and he's trying to get away and it's like grabbing him by the back of the shirt. Not so fast, says Saturn.
Yep.
Yeah. What months did you say that's happening?
Oh, when does it start? Hang on. Next spring.
I think you might have said April.
Well, there's a lot of stuff. When does it hit 17? Hold on.
somebody's going to get jacked up. Maybe that's what's going to happen. You have to look up and see my mug.
Yes, that's a great mug. May from well, he'll be feeling it strong from February on, but then it starts to really push some things down in by May. So there'll be multiple trials that will have taken place by then.
All right, so let's Pluto just went into Libra. Are you seeing the chat?
No, Pluto did not go into Libra.
I know.
No.
I see a few things popping up here that I'm going, that's not what I'm seeing.
No. Pluto
Kathy's
is in.
Buddy, Kathy's a professional.
Pluto's in Capricorn.
So anything popping up that's inaccurate, just we'll do our best to straighten things out. So let's talk about Trump in October. Maybe we can recap Trump in October, because we were talking at length about these eclipses hitting him hard, especially right now.
Let me get his chart in front of me. Hey, Annie.
Hi, Annie.
Come on.
Joining us. The reason we look different for our podcast today is because Comcast is completely down. Let me see. I'm checking to see if it might actually be back now. But
that would figure.
Yeah, we couldn't do anything because Comcast was down all over the place here. Yeah, it might be. Might be back. So we're looking for Trump.
Okay, Trump this month.
Trump's chart. And
okay.
And can you give us a little bit of insight as to why he's kind of just going right off the rails? I mean, this is a kind of a funny point. One of his rallies over the weekend, he mentioned Hannibal Lecter. Did you hear that? He started talking about Hannibal Lecter likes him. It's insanity. He also said that Biden started World War II.
Well, that I heard. Okay, so Neptune is in contact with his Saturn. Oh, I see which chart I have up here. Hang on, I got the wrong one. I got 2 times for him. Just a second. Let's get the other one.
This is my Jack Smith mug. This was a gift from our viewer, Warren Green. And I have another one that says Karma is Jack Smith. So we're looking at the astrology of that.
Okay, we're going to look at this one. All right. So actually, the main thing that's important to know for him right now is that the eclipse that I've talked about is on his Jupiter in Libra, how he makes deals, his planet, his Teflon, the thing that's always gotten him through.
Yeah.
This eclipse is on that in his second house of resources and money, and it's in a direct link to his Uranus in his public house. Uranus is how he disrupts. It's his being a rogue actor, innovative, coming up with stuff out of God knows where. So, and Uranus is in Gemini, which rules talking. So we've got this eclipse that's setting off his disruptor planet. I honestly think he's short circuiting.
It seems like it. It's, just on that point, I saw the replay of, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel or Seth Meyers, one of those guys. And I'm so glad they're back. And they were imitating him and going from one topic. I mean, his stream of consciousness, it's just going from one thing to another. One of his talks, he was like, oh, and so lit up like a Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas. Yeah, I remember, now we can say Merry Christmas. And then it was just on to the other. It was totally random, totally disconnected thinking. It's never been this bad. I mean, he's delusional and seems to have dementia, but I think we're seeing it getting quickly worse. And it sounds like that Gemini, did you say Uranus?
That's part of it. Another part is that the ruler of his house of communication is Venus, and Venus in his chart is in a direct link with Neptune in the sky now. So it's that would be the free for all, free association,
Yeah.
just coming out of God knows where.
I get dizzy. I don't really watch the rallies anymore. I try not to watch too much of them, but it's just like after a while you're exhausted trying to follow the thread.
Mm-hmm.
There
Mm-hmm.
really isn't. So scary that he almost got reelected. I mean, he didn't almost. It wasn't like it was too close for comfort. What's the chaos agent aspect?
Well, okay, so he's got there are two ways you can look at it. You can look at Uranus in his chart, which is in the most public and visible place at 17 degrees Gemini, and it's in an open current to Jupiter. So when he gets going, he just really gets going. The eclipse is happening very close to this, close enough that it's hitting. You can look at an eclipse as hitting the reset button or installing a new operating system or just shutting something out. So that's one thing. The other is that the disruptor planet in the sky, current position of Uranus, is in his house of broadcasting.
Good.
And it's been there for a while. It's also the part of his chart that deals with foreign relationships and legal processes. And that is in an opportunity aspect to Saturn, which is where he feels least comfortable. There's something unhinging, and it also that Venus that I mentioned earlier. So he's got Saturn and Venus really close together in the 11th house, which is organizations in Cancer. This is the Trump organization. This is all the inherited money. This is doing deals with governments. And Uranus in the sky is it's in a very visible place, and it's going to be contacting that signature through all of next year. It's there now and through all of next year. I don't see him suddenly starting to make sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's getting noticeably way worse very quickly. Do you think that from what you're seeing there, I mean, just comparing psychic notes to astrological notes, that what international connections and dealings he's had with our enemy countries will be brought out to the surface? Because that's what I see. I see connections with enemy countries. I mean, a lot of it's right out in full view.
The lunar eclipse at the end of the month, the one on the 28th, which is wrapping up a 2-year-ish review of what we're sinking our money into and what belongs to who and where you're getting your money. That one is in a pretty easy aspect to Mercury in his chart, which is communication, it's making deals, it's anyway, I think there could be some really big revelations by the end of the month and in the weeks immediately afterward. But honestly, they're going to be wrapping up revelations that have been there for a couple of years. It's not like we're getting new stuff. We're hearing, oh yeah, remember this was reported, this was reported, this was reported.
Yeah. I should sit down and just go through all the different stories. I was talking about this last night at PNN, to just go through all the different stories and start putting the puzzle pieces together. This to me feels like the kind of thing, I mean, what's coming up with Trump and what he's actually been doing all these years, especially when he was in the White House. I feel like I might have mentioned this before. You know those pictures you see of shipwreck and the earth has shifted and there's been a drought or something. They never knew it was there, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, look at that old ship that's, now that we've had this huge drought. There are a couple lakes in America that's happened. I can't think of them offhand, but where all of a sudden there's something there that's tells a whole story, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been on. It's been the water has dried up, and there it is in full view. That's what I see happening, and it's almost to a point that I feel that it's going to be revealed that Trump is the enemy. He's the enemy.
I will not argue that. I'm going to also point out next May is a really important time for that kind of thing to come out. I'm sorry, not May, March. Next March, there's
Okay.
a lunar eclipse on his lunar eclipse. Wrap things up. The only lunar, no, one of okay, the current, nope, scratch, ignore.
Not March.
No, it is March. The
Yeah.
only lunar eclipse in the current eclipse family. They're almost all solar, which means they're almost all pushing us in a new direction. The only one that's dealing with old stuff is next March, and it's on his Neptune in Libra in his second house. Translate Neptune, that's him just, making stuff out of thin air. That's the pitch man. That's the flim flam, whatever other words you want to use for it. In Libra, deals. So this is deals that aren't anything, and there's a lunar eclipse on that, and Pluto's part of the picture, so big stuff's going to come out.
Yeah, that might be what I'm talking about. That might be when it happens. And do you see? We've talked about his health before. When I tune into him just clairvoyantly, I feel like he's just kind of. Do you ever? We're speaking about not sleeping, right? People are having trouble sleeping, and those days that you've just like maybe gotten 2 hours of sleep, and then you're just kind of dragging through the day. That I see Trump's energy just really waning. Like I don't know how he's even functioning, and it's probably being shown, through his cognitive function and not being able to put a sentence together. So I think that that's definitely. I don't see him having the stamina to continue. And for all the jokes about Joe Biden's age, Joe Biden's got exponentially more stamina than Trump does.
He's in much better shape than I am.
Joe Biden.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He really is amazing. He's amazing. But I really don't feel that Trump's energy can really keep up with everything that's coming at him. When you look at the United States chart, you know how we're all like on pins and needles about what is he going to do? Is he going to incite this violence that he keeps, he's done it before, right? And continues to. Have you happened to see anything in the U.S. chart that could reflect it might be a volatile time? And just so people know that are in the chat, it's very hard for me to see the chat, so maybe Kathy can maybe see if something.
Well, looking at the U.S. chart, there will the current eclipse family that we're in the signs of Aries and Libra, which are reshaping what our ground rules are for getting along with each other, will be in the course of their time between 2023 and 2025, reshaping the whole notion of the courts. So that's one big thing I immediately see. Also, Pluto, this Mars Pluto aspect that I talked about that precipitated the violence this last weekend, also pulled in the US Mercury. So which is how we communicate and our notion of what family is. So this is, and guess what? His stuff is right in the middle of it. So I think this man played a role in what just recently happened.
Oh,
Uh,
I think I said it last night. I was afraid to share the video because it's like I think I said too much. But oh well. I think it's factual though.
so this is what we have just experienced uh, energetically has really hit the US in terms of what we're supposed to communicate. And I do believe that our president was instrumental in putting a statement together involving what, 5 countries on what had happened. So
Yeah, he was.
that's part of it.
Biden just gave a speech a little while ago. I didn't see the whole speech, but then he wrote with the other countries. I can't name them off the top of my head, but he wrote something about how we were all going to help Israel. There was some statement that came out.
And that would fit. So otherwise, what's important to see here is that Uranus, which is innovation, which is really uncomfortable, which brings a whole bunch of change,
Yeah.
is moving into a very uncomfortable and challenging relationship to the US moon, which is our populace, our notion of ourselves as a people. And we have moon in Aquarius, which has the notion of, brotherhood of man and
Yeah.
being progressive. But moon in Aquarius can also be like appallingly cold.
And disrupt. It could be disruptive too, right?
And so the ruler of that is Uranus, and Uranus next year is going to be in a time to change.
Hold on to your reins.
So all these things are building, all right? There's the stuff in the US chart, except for what happened with this Mars Pluto square, that definitely hit us because Pluto is exactly on the US Pluto. Pluto in the sky is on the US Pluto. So when the planet of war hit that, it hit us. So this is a huge wake up.
You mean this past weekend?
This past weekend. That
Yeah.
event was a gigantic wake up. What is our role? What do
Right.
we value? What is ours? What's our responsibility? And what is going on with our government? How much time do
Yeah.
we have?
And how much do we really want to just give these guys a pass that are holding up our military and threatening our national security? It's like I try not to think about it too much. Can we look at? Do you happen to have Jared's chart there? Because there's a connection.
That I don't have. Let me make sure it's not in here. I don't believe I do. I meant to actually pull that up. I apologize. Hang on.
No problem. I should have said something ahead of time. But I'm only asking because I see direct connects with my psychic vision. I see. That's why I want to sit down and do the whole. This is connected to this, and this.
Yeah. Whoa! I do. Hang on.
Yeah. What about that 2 billion?
Change one thing
And
here.
I think we also had a chart. You had a chart about the Republican Party, I think.
Right. So let's look at Jared really quickly. Oh.
Aha! I sent something.
Pluto in the sky is on his Mercury. So when Mars slammed Pluto, it also slammed his Mercury. Mercury in Capricorn. So whatever deals he'd been making with governments would be part of what would come out from that. Next spring's Oh, wait a minute. The eclipse this weekend is on his Pluto, so it could be showing, which is in the most public part of his chart. So this could be showing backroom and big money agreements,
Yeah.
and that coming out, and then the eclipses next spring have a lot to do with his international dealings.
I think he's going to prison for international crimes.
Next spring could set that in motion.
Yeah. I've been seeing that for a long time. I think that
Yeah, it's in his. One of the people that I've worked with, Robert Glasscock, always says if it's got to be in the birth chart for it to be a possibility, it's in the birth chart for him to spend time in confinement.
Yeah, and Trump's too, right?
Yeah, and again, everyone, Trump's might be because of health. It's not necessarily. I don't see him going to a 5-star prison.
Yeah, mental health breakdown, I would say. That's what I've always seen. I've always seen him at the end in a wheelchair, completely isolated and alone and in a mental institution.
So, Republican Party, you wanted to see something with that. So, Pluto has been moving across Jupiter in Capricorn, which would be the consolidation of power. So, Mars, actually, before the Mars Pluto square was exact last weekend, Mars in the sky was challenging the GOP hold on its own structures.
Yeah.
And that coincides with when the Speaker of the House gets taken out.
I knew he was going. It was a little later than I thought it would be.
Right, but that's an aspect, like losing that control coming out of the Republican Party chart. Hang on to look
And
at some.
yeah.
And then some other stuff is going to be really big starting in well, their troubles really started at the end of March, odd as that seems, and things that have been abated since the end of March are going to come back again in January. Just put that in the back of your mind, everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if it's just going to completely disassemble.
Well, next year, Saturn is going to move across Neptune. In the GOP chart, Neptune in the 9th house of legislation and the courts and policy and relations with other countries. And so, structure coming on this absolute lack of structure, who knows what that will end up being?
Well, we'll have to tune in. I wonder.
That doesn't look comfy.
No, it's not. After Kevin got ousted, I had this really strong impression that he, in his mind, didn't consider himself really ousted. And then the attack on Israel happened, and then I heard that he was kind of offering his services as speaker again. So,
well, he's not going to be. If he suddenly goes through a personality change and decides that he's going to follow his oath and be a really responsible person, things could turn for him by January, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that the final pass of his Saturn return is going to be that's the end, buddy boy.
Of his life in politics?
I wouldn't be surprised. Now, he could still go before then because the lunar eclipse that's happening at the end of this month is it's hitting a really sensitive spot in his chart that could have a gigantic impact on where he lives.
Where he lives?
Where he lives. Yep.
Not just work.
It worked, but all of it. Oops, now we got the low battery. 20%.
Oh,
all right, fine.
We're winding down a little bit anyway, so we'll go until your battery goes.
So, bottom line here is this eclipse, this at the end of the month, is going to bring a lot of stuff up and probably some money things and things involving money and his family or where money came from or big revelations and something leaving. So if he's got a problem, entertainment purposes only, if he's got a problem in his marriage, this could trigger it. It could precipitate it. It could also just really shake what his place in the world is. I don't see him going back into a job. So I would be stunned.
I totally agree. I don't see him being, I see him going from thinking he's a somebody, because to me he was a nobody, to going into being a nobody. And I do foresee the end of his marriage. But I've said that about Ted Cruz yet also, and that hasn't happened yet. So I wonder if McCarthy's family life is just going to come apart.
It's something that's been building, and it would fit. It would definitely fit.
Yeah.
Before my phone goes away, would you like to talk about Steve Scalise?
Yeah, let's talk about him and Jim Jordan and just what you see in terms of whether they would be speaker. I would say no, neither of them.
Scalise has really heavy burdens and obligations coming to him,
Plus, he's sick.
possibly, which could be health related, or it could be it could just be harder and harder for him to do his job. And this culminates uh, June,
Yeah,
July.
he has like blood cancer.
I know. So
Oh,
things could get really, really hard for him
yeah.
physically. Mid March is a tricky time, but July, in a number of ways, is a very tricky time for him.
Do either Jim Jordan or Scalise look like they might take that seat astrologically?
Well,
Psychically, I say no, but anyway.
Scalise has the eclipse this weekend happening on his Mercury, which is speaking. So he could
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
upgraded, but
Yeah.
it's very volatile, and it could go away next spring.
Yeah, I see. I see that he's more favored by the fascist Republicans than Jim Jordan. But even if he's there temporarily, I don't think he'll stay.
Jordan has extremely difficult transits for
Yeah.
the next year. I would not want to be him. There is answering for a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
coming. Next February, especially, is really, really bad. The
I'm
the
thinking jail. I'm thinking
well,
prison.
actually, and that could line up next year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, he's too heinous. It's too awful. I don't think he's gonna be there anymore. We have a gazillion questions we can ask and a gazillion people we could look at, but we don't have time. And your phone's gonna die. So, do you want to leave us with any words of wisdom before we talk about what we are offering in our businesses? Words of wisdom for this.
Yeah, okay. Now, there actually are aspects currently in the sky that, especially next week, are going to support paying attention to the details in your life and taking care of your own boundaries and sanity, and then ultimately trusting your instincts. So, pay attention to
Yeah.
your own little garden. Tend your garden. You're doing the right thing for the world if you tend your garden.
Yeah, think of what will make you feel balanced and energized and optimistic and just real positive. And well, I just want to say that, and I wrote this in my newsletter today, that if you are watching the horror too much on the news, it can really be devastating. It's just so hard for us to, of course, to see what's happening. We all have compassion. We all think, oh my God, what if that was. Anyway, I don't have to get into that too much. But stop and meditate and pray. Just do something else to just get out of that energy because it's too hard and it brings us down. We need the collective energy raised up. So some of us, I said the same thing when Putin invaded Ukraine. We have to figure out ways to lift it up, watch comedy, and just understand that's what we're doing our work doing that. It's been really, really challenging. Um, I just want to say before we go that I've mentioned earlier the 1930s and the Tarot in 2 hours at the Castle is a course that I'm teaching live stream. Go to psychicannetteDion.com to join, so you can be a part of that tomorrow night at 7 to 9 Eastern Time. The whole class will be recorded. You will learn how to read tarot, and it's in a castle that was built in the 1920s by John Hayes Hammond, an incredible inventor. He had 800 patents. He was a huge player in inventing remote control. He was really into metaphysics. He had seances at the castle. It's a unique event. So, and it's only $77 to take this online. It will live stream in, and if you have problems with Wi-Fi like we did today, I did. I don't know what's going on with Comcast, but don't worry because you'll get the recording emailed to you afterwards. So check it out. PsychicAnnetteDion.com. If you want to check out the castle website, it's hammondcastle.org. Either place you can purchase tickets to live stream in. If you happen to be local, there's also the option to be there in person. And that's where you go to find out everything that I'm doing. So PsychicAnnetteDion.com, including booking a reading. And if you wanted to say anything else astrologically, you can go ahead. I know your phone's dying, but
I have a lot of information already up.
Yeah.
Okay. People always send me these messages going, "What's happening here?" And I go, "Did you not read my forecast? It's in my forecast." So if you go to empowermentunlimited.net, there is a podcast for every week. It's updated on Fridays for the week following. I have a forecast for the month. I have a forecast for every new moon and full moon. If you prefer to listen to things, everything is also recorded. And on my YouTube channel, Professional Aquarian, I have a talk, which is there's a link to it at the very top of my site. I have a talk on the Aries Libra eclipses, and it goes through each of the eclipses and also puts it in historical context of eclipses back through at least the 60s. Maybe the cycle before then.
Yeah.
And it's only $30. So get it, download it, and you can understand what's happening and not have to send me texts that I will ignore. Oops, I didn't say that. So
are you teaching classes?
I do not have a class going at this moment.
All right. Well, you will, right?
They come and go. Oh, yes. I have a lot of stuff on my Patreon. It's patreon.com/ and then my name, Kathy Biehl. And one thing on that site is I have a monthly Ask Me Almost Anything, and people at the top 2 tiers can send me questions and I will talk about them. So you get things answered.
On Patreon, right? Do you also have memberships on your YouTube channel?
Nope.
I have memberships on my YouTube channel. I'm not doing Patreon, but memberships, and you can come to a psychic party the last Saturday of the month. Yeah, so we're offering up a lot of good stuff for not very much or for free. So take advantage of it, everybody. And I hope that you teach a beginning astrology class.
Oh, I do have a course that's available for download on my site called Building Blocks of Astrology. That takes you through everything.
How much is it? You're like me, I can't remember.
I want to say it's like 150. It's something in that ballpark.
How many hours is it?
6.
Oh, that's a lot. That's good. All right, I'll look at it. I'll take a check it out. All right, I think that's it. We made it happen, even though the Comcast wasn't working in my city. So I think it's back now, though. All right, thank you, everyone. Reach out.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll see you again soon. And we're doing a show on the Tuesday of the lunar eclipse.
We need to talk about that one. Will need to be on a different day. So you and I will work that out and we'll tell people. Yeah, so stay tuned and thank you. See you soon. Bye. Namaste. Bye. I don't know how we end this. There.